Good morning. How are you all doing today? Good morning to you in the room and also to the folks that we know are joining us by webinar, wherever they might be. I've got a presentation we're going to pull up here, but I really do appreciate the opportunity to be here to tell you about the Organic Seed Finder project that we've been working on, and also to tell you a little bit about eOSCA, the organization that I represent, because it may be something that you're not too familiar with in the industry that you've been working in. So I thought perhaps it would help just a little bit to give you a little bit of sense of history about the Association of Official Seed Certifying Agencies. With a name like that, it's no mystery that you'd use an acronym like at eOSCA. But to tell you what we do and what we've been doing for a long time in the seed industry, to give you a sense of history, and then hopefully it comes together and gives you an idea of why we began working with the Organic Seed Alliance and other folks in the industry to help put together this tool for organic seed growers, vendors, users, and for certifiers as well. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about history. And if you'll bear with me, but I thought it was interesting. Teresa talked about history in her presentation. I'm going to talk to you about a little bit of history too. Our organization really took its roots, if you think about it, back in the Morrill Land Grant Act of 1862 here in the United States. And it was out of that that the land grant universities took their genesis. And then as that funding and those universities were built up in the late 1800s, they began doing a lot of research on plant breeding, developing new plant varieties for the crops of the day. You know, it was the things like open pollinated corn and oats and clover and alfalfa. And so around the United States at these relatively new institutions, we had a lot of plant breeding going on. It was kind of a time of a lot of new technology in agriculture because of the Land Grant Act. Well, what they began doing then is they were doing this publicly funded research, releasing a lot of new varieties to the marketplace to allow seed companies and seed growers and farmers to have access to this new material. What was happening is that what they found is that people didn't have any standards. They didn't, once a new variety, which was pure and true to type and that kind of thing, came out of the university, very quickly the value of the variety was lost because of outcrossing and mixing and that kind of thing. And so there needed to be standards. So around the United States, each one of these individual state land grant universities, wherever they were, had their own crop improvement association, which was developing those kind of standards. But there was no standardization of the standards. So in 1919, 13 states and the country of Canada came together to compare notes. And when you think about it, there's probably only so many ways to cut the pie, and many of those certification standards were very similar, but they weren't the same. So what they did is they put together our organization, which at that time was called the International Crop Improvement Association, as a standard-setting body for the agricultural seed industry. And then out of that, time went on. We had more and more states and organizations that became a part of what we're doing. And so as time went on, like when the Federal Seed Act was written in the United States, there's a section of the Federal Seed Act that refers to certified seed. So rather than reinvent the wheel in the early 1930s, the Federal Seed Act incorporated the pre-existing eOSCA standards. Back in the late 1940s, when European agriculture was being rebuilt as a part of the Marshall Plan, out of that came the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They also have a seed certification program, and rather than reinvent the wheel, they turned to the United States and North America and the standards that we're using as a basis for those international standards as well. So, you know, when we talk about seed, and you heard the word certified a lot today, you know, you're talking about organic certification. In my world, we talk about certification as it applies to certifying seed varieties to make sure that the varieties themselves are pure. So our organization's been around for a long time. Standards have been around even longer than that. And we're actually a not-for-profit organization organized in Illinois in 1951. So in 2014, we have 45 states around the United States that have a seed certifying agency. It always begs the question, well, where do you not have members? It's in some of the northeastern states like Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, where there's a very small, if at all, seed industry, and so they don't have a certifying agency. It depends on what state you're operating in as to who does it. In about half the states in the United States, the authority has been given to a crop improvement association. Those are typically almost like a cooperative owned by the seed industry and land-grant university and the researchers in that state that come together to provide seed certification services. In about a quarter of the states, the legislature there gave that a power to the State Department of Agriculture. And then the rest of the states, some of them are a unit of the land-grant university itself. But they all are administering AOSCA standards the same way, so that as seed moves from one state to another, and the grower sees that seed tag, it has the same meaning from one state to the next. And we also have global membership as well. On my slide here, I show that we've got global members in Canada, in Chile, Argentina, in New Zealand, Australia, and South Africa. So that as seed is being developed and grown and moved from one country to the next, it all falls underneath our seed certification standards. So as a part of what we've been doing here for decades is we have been keeping track of the amount and location and quantity of certified seed, so that every year internally we keep track of millions of acres of many, many different crop types. It's anywhere from corn to cotton to canola to sugarcane to alfalfa to wheat to barley, over 60 different crop types, and we've got this internal database. So we've been doing this type of work for a long time. We do field inspections, we do seed testing, variety plots that are there to support the agricultural seed industry. And we audit facilities, making sure that seed conditioning plants are following the rules and the standards to maintain varietal purity. So we've got this history of providing third-party services to the industry. We also have some of our states at the state office that are organic certifiers themselves. And so it's an industry we don't work a lot in, but we do have some of our offices that are organic certifiers, so that a couple, 3 years ago, when we heard about the need that the organic seed industry had to maintain a website and a database, it just made good sense, because maybe there's something here that we could do to provide help and assistance to the organic seed industry. So we started working with a broad coalition of stakeholders throughout 2011 and 2012, and we got a lot of help and good input from folks on design and funding and promotions. I can't say enough about the dedication that a lot of folks in the room here have brought to that project. And, you know, we spent a lot of phone calls with Erica and Zia and Kiki and her organization. And I should say that the Organic Seed Alliance has been a tremendous partner in all this. They've been in charge of promoting the Organic Seed Finder website. Couldn't ask for anything more than what she and her organization have been doing to help promote its use. As Erica mentioned earlier, though, that it all depends on how much usage we get. We have, I think, a very usable tool. We've had some principles that guided us in putting it together and some goals to meet. But we need the input, we need vendors to list, and we need growers to use it as well. But we wanted to have something that was real-time online access to help people find organic seed. We wanted it to be relatively current. I'll tell you in a moment why it's not. It needs to be flexible, because we built a very basic framework that can be expanded, and we can add a lot of bells and whistles over time as the needs would dictate that, as we can afford to do so. But what it's there to do is to promote as a platform the growth of the organic seed industry. Now, there's a lot of things that the website is not, and I've explained it to people that, you know, we think in today's world about eBay and being able to find real-time inventory for products and do e-commerce and transactions on site. This is not eBay, it is eHarmony, okay? This is just a way for vendors and their potential customers to meet one another. And if at the end of the day, I have linked the two of you together through the Organic Seed Finder website, that was our purpose in doing so. The relationship and the transaction is then completed between the vendor and their customer from that point on. We also wanted to make sure that we had a platform here that was relatively size neutral, because we know that in the organic seed industry, there's a broad spectrum of sizes and types of companies, from very small beginning companies that want to be able to get in the marketplace and compete on equal footing with the very largest ones. And what we've tried to do is provide that. We've tried to keep our listing and our access fees to the vendors relatively low in these early days of the website. The only way that we've been able to do that is through very generous sponsorships from organizations and companies in the industry that want this website to work for the benefit of all. So it's very inexpensive, I believe. And if a small company, for example, if they have a web presence, they can be on an equal footing with the largest of them. And they can be creative in how they want to promote their products. And once we have made contact with their website, we turn it over to them to make the sale. The variety listings, we've broken them down into 3 categories for now: field crops, vegetables, and other. They show the different types, the attributes. We have a design committee and technical folks in your industry that have helped us come up with what are the important characteristics for some of these crop types that, quite honestly, we just don't deal with all that often. But we're going to go through a search process that a potential customer can search by attribute or characteristics and come up with potential. We also wanted it to be something that would be useful to certifiers too, and Zia mentioned the ability to document that a grower has searched and was perhaps unable to find the seed that they were looking for. So when we go live to the site, I'll show you how that works as well. Talked about we have our own search attributes, the certifiers use it, and like I mentioned, this is not a transactional site, but we think it's a good way for customers and vendors to meet one another. We launched it on October 1st of 2012, so it's been online now just a little over a year. We've been learning from it. We've learned a lot from the people that use it as well, because there's a feedback loop on the website where if someone looks for a type of crop or a seed and they can't find it, they can contact us through the website. And so we keep an ongoing list of what people are looking for, and we share that with the vendors who are listed on the site. And we can make that information available so that perhaps there's a market niche or a market need that people aren't meeting. And so you'll know what that might be. I just wanted to share some statistics with you about the first year of operation. And I could go into reams of data, but on the average, and it's seasonal, as you might guess, we get spikes, some months are much higher than others, but we have 1,500 people a month looking for seed. And most of those are new folks looking for seed through the site. The second line there talks about where do they come from. About 67% of these people or searchers are coming as referrals. What that means, and in the majority of the cases, they've been on the Organic Seed Alliance site first, and then they clicked through on a loop or a link, and got to the Organic Seed Finder. About 20% of them directly went and typed in our address online, and another 12% of them were doing like a Google search where someone typed in organic seed and then found us in that way. We have set up the site to where it can be used with any kind of device. And this is one of those presentations where I will not be offended if people in the crowd today use your handheld device, or use your iPhone or something like that, because it's designed for that. Although we did find that, curiously, in the last year, about 85% of people that have gone on the site have used a traditional laptop or desktop unit. We found that the vegetable fruit searches are about 3 to 1 higher than the field crop. And then we also know where these sites or these searches are coming from on a state basis. We've had several countries as well, but throughout the United States, I'm pleased to tell you, we have had searches from all 50 states plus the District of Columbia. And then these 4 states, California, Washington, North Carolina, and Texas combined account for about 30% of the total site searches. But it's been, beyond that, then pretty evenly distributed around the country as people have gone to the site. So to find it, you go to organicseedfinder.org, and my friend James and the folks over here, this is where I go now to the site live and see if it works. In the case up here, let's look at some field crops. I'm going to use the example, let's say that I'm a grower in the Midwest, where I come from. I've got the opportunity to grow food grade organic soybeans, okay? So with that, what I would do here is I would go down here and I would look at soybeans. I would click on that. Then I've got some attributes here. As I said, these are going to be for a food grade purpose. I live in a part of the Midwest where Group 2 soybeans are the maturity range that I would use. And then because of the contract, I need something that has a clear Highland soybean. And then we search the database. What it does is it pulls up those varieties listed on the site which meet those attributes. And what I was going to have you look at here is, now it's not ever intended to be a real-time inventory, but you can look over here and you can see that this date is when this company has refreshed their listing. And in this case, Albert Lee Seed Company just refreshed all the listings that they have. So if I were a searcher, I would know that this is pretty much real time. This is pretty close. we give the companies an opportunity to put a very short description in this area of what the seed might be. And then over here, these are a link. Now I'm going to look at this and say, well, maybe on my farm I have a problem with cyst nematode. So this variety, as they've described it, would be good for me. So this takes me directly to the link of the seed company. And this is where they have an opportunity to be somewhat creative in terms of how they want to present their product. In this case, this vendor, excuse me, Albert Lee Seed House, lists all their varieties here that are in their soybean lineup. And then I can go down here and I can read a little bit about what they are. And then from there, I could also scroll back up and I've got the contact information. I could link with, in this case, Albert Lee Seed, and I could finish my transaction, hopefully, with that. Now I'm going to take another quick example, and I want to just, I don't want to take too much of the time here. So in a nutshell, that's what I wanted to do, is to explain a little bit to you as to what AOSCA is, why we got involved with this project. We're very happy to be a part of it, and we've had a great collaboration with the folks in the industry that I mentioned, and so we're hoping that this project can continue. It's all based on numbers, basically. The more people we can get using it, both listening it and looking for seed, and certifiers that find some benefit to it as well. So with that, I think we're to end, right? Aren't we? For the panel. Okay, so Kiki's going to come up and moderate. But for those of you that have been involved with our project, thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Thanks.